So Tim, you were saying about Jerry Seinfeld and Frosted.
Well, look. I don't care for this kicking Jerry Seinfeld thing but before all of that, Unfrosted, I watched this movie and I giggle all the way through this perfectly ridiculous movie. Now, I admit it, I had a serious cereal addiction for several years. Between the ages of 6 and like 18. But, I kicked it. so I think I can say clearly now that that's just a perfectly cute movie. I love the shape of it. It's because it's sort of set up like a space, remember the space race? I mean, I know you remember the space race sort of things that they would do. It's set up like that, that's Jerry. Me and Jerry are about the same. So I don't get why Hollywood has decided to kick that movie specifically. Look, if you want to kick Jerry because of some things Jerry said, knock yourself out. I don't. Jerry hasn't said anything that bothers me at all. But if you must, go ahead. But what you kicking the movie for? The movie's a perfectly cute family film. I don't get it.
I get it a little bit. I think the reason they want to kick the film is because Jerry kind of upset people when he said movies are dead, and he had a few other things he was saying lately,
and sitcoms and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's making some valid criticisms of the business. He really is. He's making some very valid criticisms. I think he and everyone else are a little too fatalistic about it because, to my mind, it's a problem. But if you know film history, you're like, okay, when radio came in, it was a problem. When sound came in, it was a problem. When, television came in, it was a problem. When VHS and beta came in, we've been facing these problems for a long time. So the movies always survive. Hollywood always survives. It's manageable. Everybody thought that when, 1969, 70, 71 rolled around and the box office just died, that the 70s represented the end of the blockbuster era. And then along came Star Wars, right? So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, all true. Jerry, Jerry is a little bit isolated, I think, if he really feels like a comedian. Look, comedians can do whatever they want. They may be a little bit more contained in where they get to do what they do, because everything has become a bit siloed. But I think it's a little tough to say that funny people can't be funny in the media. In the way that they want to be funny in the media. You can do whatever you want to do. I watched that Black Lady sketch comedy show. Believe me.
Yeah.
You can say whatever the hell you want to say on the thing. And now, might you get some pushback from various different quarters in a way that you did not 20, 25, 30, 40 years ago? Certainly you might. But so what? Everybody's tough. Everybody can take it. And the reality is everybody today can crank up a YouTube channel and literally say whatever they want to say, or a TikTok channel for that matter, if you can talk fast.
No,
anyway,
that's true.
All of that. Yeah, but I like Unfrosted. I thought it was cute. Maybe you didn't like. Okay, you liked it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was. Jerry has compared it to like Blazing Saddles in the sense that it's just silly, and they had a lot of silly fun making it. If you go in thinking, oh, is this the real story of how they got, made the Pop-Tart? No, it's not, but it's awfully funny. It's very silly.
It's no different than that Weird Al Yankovic movie 2-3 years ago, which had nothing whatsoever to do with the actual origin story of Will. But he was on board. And I think that and we'll get off the Unfrosted thing. I think that because Unfrosted is really not a terribly pointed commentary about corporate America, I mean, in the broadest possible way, it makes a little bit of fun of corporate America, but it's not. It's not political in any way. I think that something about that pisses people off. I think if they wanted it to be meaner, then it's not mean.
Then Jerry's not your guy.
Yeah, Jerry don't do mean.
Jerry doesn't do that. Yeah. I went to the premiere and took my daughter to her first premiere, and it was awfully fun. And this is the thing. She's so much braver than I was at that age. She's just walking around waving at everyone, trying to get them to acknowledge her, which you can do when you're an 11-year-old girl. Like, she understands that she's cute and she's young and she's a kid, and you're going to get them to do it. So she waves to Jerry Seinfeld when he's talking to Ted Sarandos, and I'm standing there, I'm thinking, okay, I couldn't wave to Jerry and Ted Sarandos because I'd get thrown out of this place. There's my daughter smiling, waving at Jerry Seinfeld and interrupting his conversation with Ted Sarandos, the $50 million co-CEO of Netflix. And he looks over and he smiles and he waves back. And I thought, oh my gosh, the world is just going to open up for her. And then she does the same thing to Jim Gaffigan. And we're working the room. Just working the room. It's unbelievable.
It's a currency of youth, of childhood, and all kids should learn how to use it.
But it was very funny. Ted Sarandos introduced Jerry before the screening, saying, "Hey, it was Jerry's birthday yesterday. He turned 70. Can you believe that?" Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah, he looks half that age. And
I didn't realize Jerry was that much older than me. To be honest with you, I'll be 63 in a couple of weeks, but I didn't realize Jerry was a decade older than me.
Yes,
we just seemed like we were literally from the same. Whatever.
Well, he looks great, and you look great.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm cheating.
so Sarandos introduces him, and he says, "Let's sing Happy Birthday." So the whole auditorium sings Happy Birthday for Jerry Seinfeld at the premiere. And he walks out, and he says, "Isn't that just the saddest song? Everyone feels worse if you've had it sung to you or if you're singing it. You just feel worse." It's a great laugh. It's a great line.
It's so true.
Anyway,
Jerry, the king of truth. Anyway,
we've had a couple of did we lose a couple of people this week? Let's talk first about the one everybody knows, which is Roger Corman finally bit the dust at 98.
98.
He was one of the last. He might even be the last. I'm thinking all the people we interviewed for Schlock, The Secret History of American Movies, 24 years ago. Roger may be the last. I'm trying to think. I mean, we have a couple of pundits who are younger. Michael Bowen is still with us. But of the major filmmaking characters, I think he was the last. I think he's gone. Sam Markoff is gone, and Doris Wishman's gone, but Roger was the most interesting. I mean, you were there for a lot of those interviews.
Yeah, but Mr. Roger Day, though.
Roger, we couldn't, we had to go interview him at his studios in Venice. He had a little studio lot in Venice at the time, which was a classic Roger Corman deal where you could actually, the sound stages were meaningless. They were utterly not sound stages because you could hear all the planes flying from Santa Monica Airport. It was nearby. Every plane, you heard them coming and going. There was nothing soundproof about those sound stages. They were just the worst. So that was very Corman-esque. But he comes in on time, sits down, and we, got the lighting set up and the whole thing done. Dave Weishart was there, and he, we did a little bit of B-roll with him. And then the most fascinating thing, every other interview subject, it was just an interview. You interview them, they talk to you, they answer your questions, thank you very much, and move on. With Corman, it was, so tell us what it was like the first day you open up your theaters. Well, on the day we actually, stop, let's stop that. Let's take that again. on the first day when we one more time, let's do that again. And it was, I kid you not, it was hysterical. He was doing takes of himself. He was doing takes. And he did that. And he did that a number of times. He did that like 3 or 4 times where he wanted to deliver the line a certain way. Or something occurred to him and he wanted to redo it and include that. And you saw the filmmaker in him working. You saw that aspect of his personality and the control freak. Yeah. It was a very illuminating interview. And, I've never forgotten that. It was really fascinating.
No, what did I get Roger for? I got Roger in a weird way. I sort of worked for Roger, but not really. Roger had those offices. I think was it New World? New World.
Yeah. They were on, were they on Sepulveda?
I want to say Sepulveda, not too far from, like UCLA.
Yeah, exactly. Sepulveda between Wilshire and Ohio. People who aren't here from it, they have no idea.
They have no idea what we're talking about, but it's a big deal if you were. And I was working for some temp agency, and they stuck me in doing some admin crap in New World. And I did my admin crap in New World, and Roger would walk in and walk out and do this, do that. And I was really working for his assistant anyway, and I never said a word to him at all. This is 1990.
Yeah.
1991, you and John, all the guys, Salazar, I got working over at and I go and I'm interviewing I'm interviewing Roger for, and we were talking about before the show. FX Feeney was a co-writer on Frankenstein Unbound.
Yeah.
So Frankenstein Unbound.
Also an interview subject in Schlock, but
yes, which is why. And so I interviewed her, right? I said, this is like, close to a year later, if not a year later. And Roger Corman, and he had, in that way you're talking about the way he spoke, and I'm sure people who've seen him in interviews, he had particularly clipped way of speaking. He spoke that way. That was not an affectation. His brother Gene, you knew Gene.
Oh yeah.
Gene spoke that way too. It was just a thing from wherever the hell they were from. People spoke like that. And I swear to you, I'm a radio junket, Frankenstein Unbound, Roger Corman. He looks right at me and says, "Don't you work for me?"
So funny.
Now, I'm the only black kid at this table. I think I was the only black kid in that office. So Roger would have had to, but he looked right at me and says, "Don't you work for me?"
That's
you know what that meant? It meant that when Roger was walking back and forth through New World a year earlier, he was actually paying attention to who the hell was in the room. And he had no reason to be paying attention to the kid from Apple One. I interviewed Roger Corman.
But, here's something about Corman, too. He, as we talked about in Schlock, he had aspirations to be a great artist at one point, right? And as so often happens, he poured all of these passions into one film in particular, The Invader, which is a great film. I mean, let's be serious. The Invader is a great film. Black and white, stars William Shatner as a race-baiting racist who goes down into this southern town and really, really stirs him up. And Roger was a very, very socially conscious civil rights era guy. I mean, he was very much about that moment. And this was his film that he wanted to speak to a certain mentality in the South that he felt was pervasive and that had not really received proper attention in the media. So he wanted to tell this story. And if you have seen The Invader, William Shatner is astonishing in that part. This is a pre-Star Trek William Shatner, a pre-Twilight Zone William Shatner, but he is astonishing. He is menacing, but he is credible. He's not evil. He's just a man of conviction. They just happen to be incredibly wrong convictions.
One of the reasons I always thought that Bill Shatner was so good in that part is because he's from Canada. That's one of the reasons I think that outsider's perspective, I think he could see those people in a way that, people, and a lot of the other folks, they were from down and around about there. Yeah. And there was something about Bill Shatner in that part that was just a little, and it was, anyway, you're absolutely right what you're saying about Roger though. And Roger would have said to you that he brought that conviction to pretty much all of his films, no matter how schlocky Roger was. True. His intention was to make a good film, an entertaining film, a film that achieved its intention every single time.
I think after The Invader failed, he said, "You know what? I'm just not going to put myself emotionally on the line anymore. I'm going to give them what they want." Yeah. And from that point forward, he became the Roger Corman that we know. And being very, stingy, which he was with money, he made everything on a nickel. He didn't have designs on being the guy who brought in future talent and created the next Robert Towne, created the next James Cameron. He didn't when you look at the careers that he created, Jonathan Demme, there are at least 5 or 6 Best Pictures, which would not exist but for the fact that Roger Corman gave those filmmakers their start. Yeah. But he didn't have designs on being the guy who cultivated talent. He just became that guy because he was open to young talent. He didn't throw up doors and he didn't slam doors in anyone's faces. He didn't throw up gatekeepers. He was open to being a place where people could come in and learn the craft from the ground up. Mm-hmm. And as a result, a lot of really talented people took him up on it and were willing to work for less to get that experience. And I think there's something to be learned in that. We don't have anyone today who does that. who just says, you know what? I don't care if you didn't go to film school. I don't care if you didn't even go to high school. Come on, work for me.
Yeah, now it's all gatekeeping.
It's all gatekeeping.
And even if somebody at the top might be inclined to engage the system that way, there are 4 or 5 gatekeepers between you and them. I think Spielberg's a good guy and would tap a kid on the shoulder, but you got to get through 75 gatekeepers to get to Spielberg. But Roger, no gatekeepers. If you and I mean, the biggest gate was if you wanted too much money, then no, you cannot work for me, sir. But if you're willing to do good work, for a reasonable amount of money, then I will give you the opportunity to make your bones and make your day. And he did that. What did we used to call it? The Roger Corman School of Film, Film School, Roger Corman Film School. And if you knew, and people would try to look that up. You can't look it up, folks. You either went to it or you didn't. That's Roger Corman. And women, Roger Corman, no Gail Ann Hurd without Roger Corman. Who won the Academy Award for Hurt Locker?
You mean director?
Director, yeah, her. Roger Corman. I'll look it up while we're chatting. But these folks came through Roger Corman, men and women and brown folks, and not just the biggie names too. There's a whole crap load of set designers, costume designers, real grunt type people in electrical departments and stuff like that.
Catherine Bigelow.
Catherine Bigelow. Thank you very much for looking at that. No Roger Corman, no Catherine Bigelow. Catherine Bigelow won what? If I'm not mistaken, was it the first or second Academy Award for director, best picture directed by a woman?
First woman to win it. First woman to win it outright.
Yeah. So, that's Roger. In terms of a through line.
I mean, look, Jonathan Demme cut his teeth doing all those women in prison films.
Thank you.
And there were a bunch of them. No
Roger Corman, no Pam Grier. I mean, dude, we could play that game they play with Kevin Bacon. Only you could probably go 2 degrees.
and of course, we always forget that Roger Corman had that wonderful cameo in Godfather 2.
Yeah,
as a senator, wonderful little throwaway there, but immortalized in a Best Picture. So
yeah. So
well, Roger left quite a legacy. I'm sorry he didn't make it to 100. I think we were all hoping he was 98, and I thought, and I was saying before the show, my feeling is once you pass 95. I feel like you're entitled to 100.
You earned
it. Otherwise, it's like running the Boston Marathon and just giving up at mile 25. You get no, just see it through. Come on.
The thing about Roger was completely compos mentis. He was Roger was doing stuff 2-3 right before the pandemic. Roger was at work doing biz, making movies, executive producing. He's kind of like Ivan Reitman. I think Ivan Reitman still has 3 films coming out. He died 5 years ago.
And then we had another passing, which isn't really felt so much outside of LA, but it was felt hugely here. Local entertainment journalist Sam Rubin passed at the unbelievably premature age of 64. Yeah. And Sam Rubin has been a fixture here for over 30 years. When we were starting out, Sam was starting out. Yeah. And not even, he had started out elsewhere, but he came to LA in the early 90s, and he was immediately a personality on KTLA. He was everywhere on local news. He was on red carpets. He was at premieres. He was a morning show anchor. He was a ubiquitous entertainment journalist, and he was a tireless journalist. I would see him 5 a.m. Oscar nomination announcements. All the rest of us look like we've just rolled out of bed. We're hating life. It's still dark. Sam is over in the corner, bouncing off the walls, put together right to the nines, suit and tie, on his 5th cup of coffee, ready to go on camera. He's camera ready right then and there at 5 a.m. And you just wanted to slap the guy. You're like, I don't know who you are. Yeah. And then, you would see him like 11 o'clock at night finishing up a red carpet, doing, you're like, how do you sleep? The guy worked 7 days a week, 19 hours a day for over 30 years. And I think he worked himself to death.
I
loved it.
I gotta agree with you. Sam, and those of you out there in the big internet, as W used to say, might have seen Sam. Look, Sam did a lot of international television. I was an international guy back then, and Sam did a lot of international television. So in Australia, they knew Sam as well as they did here in LA and in the UK. And because Sam did the big shows. And Sam was just a great guy. In our little email exchange that we had when we found out that Sam had passed, I related the story of how when I first got started doing red carpet, Sam, who particularly when he went over to KTLA, that's the local station that he was on here, although he did some work over at Fox and whatnot. When he went over to KTLA and really became the senior entertainment reporter there, Steve Edwards and some other guys had been around. Sam would be, you could, no matter what time you tuned into Channel 5, you would see Sam live on air. And I could not understand how he did it. How could you possibly be on the morning show, the afternoon show, the early evening show, the evening show, and the late evening show? How's it possible? Yeah, I'm counting the hours. He had to be sleeping at the office. Because there was just no way he was. So that was Sam. This is how good a guy he was. Red carpets work like this. There's a hierarchy. The more important your outlet, the sweeter the spot you get on the red carpet. The spot closest to the limousine door when it opens is what we used to say about that sweet spot. Sam was way up there. He was in that sweet spot. Sam, when I first got started. We would chit chat and have fun and all this kind of stuff. And then I would walk way down to the other end of the carpet. And Sam started saying to me, "Hey, brother, stand next to me. You'll get everybody." Now, this is something that you're not good. Your publicists and people, all of this is very specific, right? But when Sam said he's standing next to me, they made room.
Yeah.
That's the juice that Sam had, and that's the kind of good guy Sam was. And that seems like, but it was a really, really, really big deal because what Sam did is he made sure that I got the important interviews. And getting the important interviews made sure that I kept my job. He knew that.
Yeah.
And he says, "No, bro, I'm going to make sure you keep your job." And people do things like that. And you just don't forget. You don't forget. That was just wonderful. And it was 30 years ago, and he's just great.
And I made an analogy just purely off the cuff in some email exchanges that we were having with Mark and Ray, but Sam was also a crucial, indispensable component of building the Broadcast Film Critics Association, which then became the Critics' Choice Association. Yeah. In those early days, the Broadcast Film Critics was founded by Rod Lurie and Joey Berlin. Now, Rod at the time was doing a bit of media, but mostly a print journalist, right? And he eventually migrated. He was a member of the LA Film Critics before I was there, and he migrated to being a filmmaker. But Rod was not a big face to people from television. Yeah. And neither was Joey. Joey was a print journalist.
Yeah.
So my analogy was always, if you're going to use a biblical analogy, Rod Lurie was broadcast film critic Jesus, and Joey Berlin was broadcast film critic Peter, but it was Sam Rubin who came on, joined that board, and became film critic Paul. He evangelized the organization. He grew the organization. When people were approached by the broadcast film critics, what's that? And they would look at the roster, and you're like, all right, Rod Lurie, I've read him, Joey Berlin. Oh, I know Sam Rubin. I watch him every morning. I watch him every evening. He's on the 11 o'clock news. He's on the morning show. He's everywhere. That being everywhere was his currency. And it was a currency that, like you said, that he used that currency to benefit you. He used that currency to benefit the broadcast film critics, which grew into the Critics' Choice, which today will outlive him. He used his currency in ways that benefited others. And that was enough for him. It didn't have to come back to him. I mean, he really was one of those pay it forward guys.
Yes.
And you don't find a lot of them in our business. You don't. And he was beloved all over LA. I mean, the day he died, his face and name was on billboards. The Ferris wheel at the Santa Monica Pier lit up Sam. I mean, that's how treasured he was in this town. And we have had entertainment journalists in the past.
Oh,
George Pinocchio is not that beloved around here. Gary Franklin was not beloved like that.
Whoa, Henry Sheehan, the other Henry Sheehan.
David Sheehan.
David Sheehan, sorry, David
Sheehan, not that beloved. I mean, it took something to be an entertainment journalist in Los Angeles, which is so hard, and they judge you so roughly, and you've got to deliver the goods. And somehow he got the interviews, and like I said, he paid it forward, and he paid it forward to everybody. Everyone loved the guy. So Sam Rubin, gone at 64, far too early. Yeah. He will be tremendously missed. He leaves a huge hole in LA media culture.
Yeah. Tough one.
Anyway. Fortunately, we haven't had any other deaths. Those are the two, but they were big ones.
A couple of big boys around here. I don't know. It's these things happen, but sometimes they throw you for a bit of a
for a loop.
Yeah,
for a loop. Well, let's talk about some movies. And, get into this. I'm gonna go through some Music Box titles here first. We haven't touched on Music Box in a while. Music Box is a wonderful company, a great little distributor. They release movies theatrically and on DVD and Blu-ray, and they continue to thrive in an environment where distributors are being choked. But they get great foreign films. They get great indies. They just have a wonderful footprint, and a lot of their stuff they acquired, in years past from the City of Lights, City of Angels Festival, Colcoa, now the French American Film Festival. What are they? French American FAF.
Yeah,
FAF now.
Yeah, that's taken me a while.
Yeah, I don't like FAF. I like Colcoa. It rolls off the tongue, but unfortunately, there were certain guild members. I still call it Colcoa. There were certain, it's an affiliation between the Franco-American Cultural Fund and the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild. Let's just say, and I'm not going to name any names, but let's just say there are some grumpy old directors who in meetings for years have been saying, it sounds too much like Coca-Cola. And they
finally won.
They finally won. FAF. What does FAF sound like? It doesn't sound like anything.
I can't say it because I have a lisp, so that's not going to happen.
Ridiculous. Anyway, so the first title here from Music Box, DVD only, but it's a beautiful movie. I wish it were on Blu-ray because it's so beautifully shot. Wonderful location. Based on a novel, The Road Dance.
Oh.
The Road Dance is based on a true story. It takes place in a little village in the Scottish Hebrides. Those islands north of Scotland, which are just so cold, it's astounding that anybody ever bothered to live there. Yeah. But this is a beautiful love story on the eve of World War I. It's a period love story based on a novel by John McKay from 2002, and it's just an old-fashioned melodrama. It's beautiful. It's touching. The backdrop of war just gives it such a great presence. This ever-present power of something that's about to happen. It's a lovely, lovely film. It does not overstay its welcome. It's just under 2 hours. And Richie Adams wrote and directed it. Hell of a filmmaker. Look for this guy in the future. But beautiful movie. I really love this. Hermione Corfield is the actress. She's lovely. Morven Christie, Mark Gaddis, Will Fletcher, all these people that I don't know, but they're wonderful performers, and I look forward to seeing more of them in the future.
It's one of those beautiful Irish movies set during that period where everything was made of wool.
Yes.
Maybe canvas. Yeah. It was everything. And it's just the wind is never not blowing. It's just one of those beautiful things. It's never a sunny day, and it's just, I love those movies.
It's absolutely terrific. And then we've got another sweet little kind of remote island movie here. It's called My Sailor, My Love by Klaus Haro. I hope I didn't mispronounce his name. It's got some of those umlaut dots over the A and the O, and to me that just means it's a heavy metal name. Whenever I see the two dots, I just think, Megadeth or Motley Crue. Anyway, Klaus Haro directed My Sailor, My Love, which takes place in remote Ireland. And it's about an old guy who doesn't necessarily get along with his daughter, and his daughter hires an older local grandmother to basically care for him. And this creates all kinds of fascinating family entanglements, and it's about late life love, and it's really, really sweet, and that Irish backdrop is just so fantastic. It is genuinely beautiful. This is also only on DVD, not on Blu-ray, but it made its run in theaters, and it was very well received at the Toronto Film Festival, and it's beautiful.
Present day Irish backdrop, so now you have all kinds of not natural fibers in the wardrobes.
And then on
a lovely movie.
And then on Blu-ray is a film I know Tim was very fond of, Fremont by Babak Jalali. Yeah. What a wacky, crazy, weird, quirky, beautiful little indie this is, and all in black and white. It's about an Afghan translator refugee who is now in Fremont, California. If you know Fremont, California, it's no great shakes. It's kind of dull in the middle of nowhere, but somehow it becomes a poetic backdrop here. It might as well be an Irish or a Scottish island. But it's about this woman. She used to be a translator, and now she's working in a fortune cookie factory. And Tim, take it away. Tell us why this is such a charming movie.
Lovely, charming movie. She works in that factory for this family, and she eventually gets the job writing the little fortunes that go inside the cookies, because the fortunes that they're doing. And it's just this lovely, lovely movie where she's able to express the things that she's feeling. She was a former translator for the military, and she puts them into these cookies. It's the kind of thing that Jim Jarmusch. It's a Jim Jarmusch film, but with these characters from these places who have experienced these things. But it's really constructed in the way Jim constructed films. 80 whatever. You know those movies Jim made. Back then. It's absolutely beautiful, lovely, very, very moving. And simple, a homie from the Bear, is in the film too. Greg Turk, a few other people. Really good movie. Really
it's fun.
Jeremy Allen White. That's his
yes. No, it's a terrific little movie. It's black and white. It's on Blu-ray. Thank goodness. Also not on Blu-ray, but on DVD, it should be on Blu-ray, is Alice Winokur's tremendous French film, Revoir Paris, which means to see Paris again. This is such a powerful movie. Virginie Efira, and the latest French actress to kind of make her to plant her stake in international cinema. This premiered at Cannes in 2022. Also went to it was at the director's fortnight there, and then it went on to the Toronto Film Festival. Keep your eye out for this film. It's on DVD from Music Box. It's tremendous. It's basically about a woman played by Virginie Efira, who one night is just having dinner and a terrorist attack happens. And when she recovers from this thing, she really doesn't even remember it. But she goes back, and in this respect, it's a lot like the Jeff Bridges, Peter Weir film. That wonderful movie. Good Lord. The plane crash film.
Yeah.
The title of which
Roseanne,
Rosie Perez.
Won Academy Award for that. Yeah. Fearless.
Thank you. Yeah. Fearless. It's a little bit like Fearless in that regard, which is that it's not about the event. That's not so much about the plane crash. This isn't so much about the terrorist event. It's about survivor's guilt. It's about amnesia of sorts, that she doesn't allow herself to remember certain things, so she has to go back and find other survivors and reconnect. And it's about the healing process. Mm. It's about the trauma and the healing, and it's ultimately just an opportunity for a great performance. So tremendous lead performance there by Elfira. On Blu-ray, the rest of these are all on Blu-ray, and I'm going to save the best for last because it has some fabulous quotes on it. Some pull quotes by an amazing film critic. So another great film with Virginie Efira, who is totally different here, is Other People's Children. And this is by another female filmmaker, Rebecca Zlotowski. I love Roger Corman, but I've never seen him be so sensitive here. This is basically about a French woman and her relationship with a man played by Roger Corman, who has a daughter from a previous relationship, and the degree to which the daughter's mother, his ex-wife, continues to be a huge part of their lives. And she wants to get pregnant and have a child with him. She wants that bond with him as well. But the ex-wife just will not go away, continues to have emotional troubles. And, there's all of these bonds, and she obviously has the bond with the child that, Elthira doesn't have. And it's what the French do so well, which is to get it's not just here are some relationships. They get inside the seams and the crevices of these relationships, and they work it like dough. And it's a magnificent movie. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, literally the equivalent of these films, 15, 20, 25 years ago, were all theatrically released films.
All of them.
Here in the United States. They would play at the Limleys and the here and there, and we would be talking about it. Some of them would be, and frankly, there were sort of equivalents of these films, American equivalents of these films, not remakes of these films, but equivalents of these films. The American equivalent of these films either don't get made mostly, or if they do get made, they certainly only live their lives streaming. They don't get made and get theatrical release. All of these films that you're talking about now, these films are all theatrically released in Europe, in France. And I don't know, that's a thing. There's the value of these sorts of films as just in general, but certainly as films that get theatrically released and spend time in theaters. Man, that's a thing that we got to think about here in the United States.
I agree.
We got to get the French ones back in theaters, but we got to get the English-speaking ones back in theaters too.
Well, here's a crazy one. It's called Please Baby Please. This is from the Music Box Selects collection. Amanda Kramer. A lot of great female directors now. Amanda Kramer directed this. Variety quoted on the back of this. I have to quote this because it's a great pull quote. West Side Story by way of Kenneth Anger. It's bananas, man. This movie's bananas, but and that's really what it is. It's, about this couple, Andrea Riseborough and Harry Melling, or this couple. They live on the Lower East Side.
This is the movie Riseborough should have been nominated for an Academy Award for.
I know, right?
Oddly nominated for that other thing. She's fantastic in this.
They have a run-in with this street gang, these greasers, and it just all kind of blows up from there. It's a lot of great extras on here, including cast Q&A from the premiere in Los Angeles and outtakes and a lot of other stuff. But it really, it's weird, man. It's a strange, weird, eccentric movie. It makes the 50s look like you've never seen them look in any other movie ever. I would almost say that it's like Grease by way, not West Side Story by way of Kenneth Anger. I would call it like Grease by way of Jim Jarmusch. As long as we're talking about Jarmusch, right?
Yeah. Look, again, early 90s.
Yeah.
Here. These kind of movies were being made all the time. Although you saw them everywhere. I mean, this is not that. And even by big filmmakers. Scorsese made what was it? Mean Streets? I think it's not Mean Streets.
Yeah.
But that other one he made with Griffin Dunn. After Hours. After Hours. It's a little psychedelic. It's all sets and everything's green or purple or it's just the whole scene, man. And I love these. I've always loved those little movies, and I hope we find a space for them again. In the theatrical space. Yeah, man.
And speaking of Signature Move, another Music Box Selects movie, which is also a little bit bonkers. This won the Grand Jury Prize for the Best U.S. Narrative Feature at Outfest, which is no longer in existence a few years ago.
Yeah.
But it premiered at South by Southwest, and it's kind of crazy. So it's about Shabana Azmi, who I absolutely adore, the wonderful Indian actress. So Shabana Azmi and Fauzia Mirza play a mother and daughter. It's about American Pakistani family and their mother and daughter. And the daughter is an attorney. They live in Chicago, and the mom has a fixation on television that borders on insane. I mean, it's like she's just, television is everything, and it somehow Mexican lucha libre wrestling gets involved in the story. I won't tell you how, but it's a look at the eccentricities of American culture and all of our immigrant cultures when they get thrown into a melting pot. I don't even know how else to describe it. It's just really, it's a really weird, fun, engaging movie, and it gets into the differences between generations and mothers and daughters and immigrants and their native-born children. And it just it's fun and weird and very, very eccentric. So
it's one of those movies. Look, this says a movie about a lesbian Pakistani Muslim lesbian in Chicago. Look, all of which is true, but the movie doesn't present like that statement. All of that's true.
It's between the seams.
It doesn't have except for the fact that that's the stuff. It's just this funny a movie, a little bit dramatic with the mom, because the mom has these issues about identity. Anyway, it's just as cute. Again, I'm going to keep saying this all the way. I think all the way through this. 25 years ago, this would have been like the incredibly true adventures of two girls in love.
Exactly.
Or these sort of really sharp movies, and would have had a little lovely. What's his name's first kiss? Those it lives in that spot, and those are just all these great movies. These movies are cute. I really like these movies.
So, and then we have a Francois Ozon movie, The Crime Is Mine, which for my money, if we're going to talk about a courtroom drama, is so much better than
that French thing from
It was just Oscar nominated and won an Oscar for Best Screenplay. And This is so much better. The Crime Is Mine is a courtroom farce. Let's say that right up front. This is a courtroom farce, and it is a rousing one. It is so smart. It is so satirical. He's just poking holes at everybody. You don't have to understand how the French justice system works, as opposed to the other one. Right. You got to say, it's very confusing. You're like, I don't understand what the judges are doing. I don't understand why you're allowed to present that as evidence. No, you don't even need to know that here. The whole thing is just a great big. It's really, really mocking human nature more than anything else. A lot of great guest stars in this thing, and it's the reason that this woman becomes a superstar witness in this ridiculous farce of a trial, and becomes it blows up in the mind of the public, and the whole thing is the murder in question for which she is accused is so ridiculous and so bizarre. And you find it incredulous that this is even happening. It's really a wonderful movie. It's very, very fun. The Crime Is Mine with Francois Ozon, and what a cast it has. I mean, Isabelle Huppert, Danny Boone, Fabrice Lucchini, a lot of just wonderful French actors show up in this thing. It's really a lot of fun. And then lastly, here we have Jean Dujardin in the two-film set of the two Michel Hazanavicius, the two Michel Hazanavicius OSS 117 films, Cairo Nest of Spies and Lost in Rio. This is a 2 Blu-ray set, which has a couple of quotes on here. Of the first one, it says, "The funniest spy spoof ever made." And the next one says, "The second funniest spy spoof ever made." Both of them credited to box office. Now, when this was released, when both of these films were released separately on DVD, because they were separate releases and they had a little bit more real estate to actually name the critic, I was able to parade those DVDs around and say, "Look, I was quoted." Unfortunately, my name is not attached to those quotes, but it should be, because I'm the one who wrote them both.
Yeah, man, so, that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks a little bit.
What are you going to do?
It is what it is.
Now we know.
But they got feature commentaries by Hazanavicius, who is wonderful, and Dujardin, whom I've never met. I've met Hazanavicius. I've interviewed him, but I've not met Dujardin. So that is fun. And then there's making of featurettes and alternate scenes and bloopers and a lot of other fun stuff on here. But
are all of those out on DVD and
so the third film is out on Blu-ray. The third film, Hazanavicius had nothing to do with, and it's really sad. I mean, these are just hysterical movies. So as I think people have know now, because we've covered the older films here, OSS 117. Hubert Bonisseur de la Batte is his name, is the original French James Bond, but it's a spy character who predates James Bond, and the movies, I think, predate the Bond films, or else they're right in the same pocket.
I think the first one was like 63 or something like that.
It might be. So, I mean, they're right around the same time. And the original films are straight. The novels were straight. They play the original films straight. And when Hazanavicius and Dujardin got together for these, they said, let's just go for broke. And they shoot them as if they were made in the 60s. It's just silly. It's just wacky stuff. The laughs come fast and furious. They're just wonderful. I love these movies. I love the music. And this is what really set Hazanavicius up to win the Oscar for The Artist, because he's such a great mimic. He's able to mimic a certain kind of film and a certain kind of filmmaking, and he did that in The Artist, except he went back to a different era in black and white and silent and so forth. Mm-hmm. But I remember when I interviewed him at Colcoa again, he talked about doing the third film, which, one of the key things in these movies is that Hubert Bonisseur de la Batte he's a misogynist, and he's, let's not call, yes, he takes advantage of women, but he thinks he's a really good guy. And we shouldn't call him a racist, because he's really trying hard. When he uses epithets and he makes stereotypes, he thinks he's being a really noble guy. He thinks he's being really, really magnanimous. He's just a clueless dork. And so all of that stuff is stereotyping of Arabs and stereotyping of Jews and stereotyping of Latin Americans. It's all, it's all done so over the top. It's hysterical, and you laugh at him. You're not laughing at anybody else. And it's tricky.
And it's meant to be pushed through it's set in the 60s.
It's set in the 60s.
When the other ones were actually made. And it's meant to, so anyway,
look, in the second film, when he meets up with Jewish and with Israeli intelligence, and he's surprised that they're Jewish because of their noses. You cannot help but laugh, because it's taking that stereotype and it is just pushing it right to the wall, and it's so wonderful. And when I interviewed him for Colcoa, he said, in the next film he goes to Africa, and we all just knew, we're like, oh my god,
with love,
we're like, oh my gosh, now I totally can see this. I can completely see how this movie's going to play. We've been there before. That's like the last frontier of Hubert and all of his politically incorrect, idiosyncrasies and all of his just unbelievably incorrect racial stereotyping. Go for it. And then Hazanavicius had a falling out with the screenwriter. And Hazanavicius walked away, and they brought a new director in, and his previous writing partner kind of took over the film. And that third film is not as funny.
Yeah.
It just isn't. It misses something. It misses that light touch. And so, directors can do wonders. If you're the right director and you have the right touch with the material, sometimes you got to.
So 2009, 2006, those two.
Yeah.
The one there. That third film, 2021.
Yeah.
And the difference, brother, lies in that time.
You're right. You're right.
Anyway, just really nothing else. But those two films, absolutely hysterical. Love those two films. Love them.
Shall we do some 4K or television? Where are we going to jump? 4K.
Let's do some 4K.
All right.
Yeah, let's do some 4K over here. A lot of stuff.
Oh, there's a ton here. So let's start with the 800-pound gorilla. Talk about Dune Part 2.
Yeah, man. Which is to my mind. Look, they're very different films. Almost in genre, almost in the way that Alien and Aliens are literally different genres of film in the same thing. This is much more of an action film. It sure is. It's a combat and battle film. Indeed, once you get into the third act, that's what you're doing.
Oh, it's nonstop.
We're doing gigantic set piece, nonstop stuff. First film, it had its moments of all of that, but it was really establishing narrative and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. Which is a lot of that's going on here too. But it's really so if you like the first film, you're just going to have to love this one, because it's all of the stuff you get in the first film with 5 times the action.
It's very true. It feels like the first film was all set up, and this is all payoff.
Yeah.
And, people keep kind of comparing this to, well, David Lynch did it all in one film. And
no, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
That was mean.
I mean, the Lynch film stands apart as a Lynch film. It's very much David Lynch's Dune, and it's not so much Frank Herbert's Dune. It's David Lynch kind of using Dune to do what Kubrick...
That platform to make a David Lynch film.
Yeah, like what Kubrick did with The Shining. Stephen King, there's no Stephen King in The Shining. It's all Stanley Kubrick.
Stephen King didn't even like The Shining. he did. He famously, it's why he made it again when he had a chance.
Yeah,
and made a terrible movie.
This is the movie for people who are fans of the books. This is what really is this is faithful to the source material. Let Lynch's movie kind of be out there and be what it is.
Vinny read the books. David Lynch very famously said, I never read those books. And I'm like, you don't say.
And what's interesting? So I mean, when we there really are 4 incarnations of Dune. There's Denis Villeneuve's Dune and Dune Part 2, which we have here, and we're going to get Dune Messiah now, apparently.
Yes.
And by the way, let me just say, on 4K, this just wipes it out. I mean, if you have a state of the art 4K TV and you put this thing on there with all of its, I mean, especially at the very, very beginning, all of the kind of the rich reds and the blacks and the colors, which show up beautifully when you see this in IMAX, and you would think, oh, that's never going to reproduce at home. It's just the colors are too intense. The contrast is too intense. No. The people at Warner Brothers, they do this better than anyone else. This is a state-of-the-art 4K on the right TV. This thing just blows up your house. It audio, picture, the whole thing, it's right there. It pushes everything right to the limit. But the extras are great too. The extras are tremendous. There's very few extras, but they're really great because they get into all of this stuff. How did they do that stuff? Because you look at this, you go, I can't believe that's CGI. It's something else. The riding of the worms, and I see him, and I've never seen CG do that. So you get insights into all that stuff. It's wonderful. But here's what's interesting. There's David Lynch's Dune. There's Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune, which never got made. But if you've seen the doc, you kind of feel like you know what it would be. It's very different. Like all of that, all of the intense designs that he was getting out of H.R. Giger, pre-Alien Giger. And then there was the TV miniseries Dune.
Frank's son.
Yeah, which my wife worked on kind of at a distance, and which is shot by Vittorio Storaro very nicely, but otherwise not that memorable. And then there's this, and this still stands apart. The Denis Villeneuve's Dune is the faithful Dune, and you got to own this because it's state of the art.
Well, the storylines, the kind of the television Dunes, those were not Frank's. Perhaps Frank was going to write that stuff, but his son, I forget some other writer, guy named Sullivan or something, sort of like finished those storylines, and so that this, as you say, very, very. Denny read the books, and these films are about what the books are about, and get the context correct.
Yeah.
And then you have all the other Dooney type stuff, and it's kind of cool.
So I want to talk for a second about The Beekeeper with Jason Statham. I want to just be very, very clear on this. So first of all, this movie is basically it's another it's like the last several Denzel Washington movies,
those Equalizer movies.
The Equalizer movies. It's basically an Equalizer movie. It's basically a man on fire. It's one of those movies. He's a badass and he goes around, he kills people, and he makes the bad guys pay and whatever. Liam Neeson. It's a Liam Neeson movie. It's a Denzel Washington movie. Yeah. That's what it is. If you expected anything else of a movie starring Jason Statham called The Beekeeper, if you genuinely believed that a movie called The Beekeeper starring Jason Statham would be about beekeeping, just check yourself into a hospital.
That's on you. That's on you.
Just know this.
You are not paying attention.
A movie starring Jason Statham called The Beekeeper is about an international killer.
Yeah.
A movie starring Jason Statham called The Plumber is about an international killer. A movie starring Jason Statham called The Accountant is about an international killer. I don't care what the movie is called. If it stars Jason Statham, it could be called,
The Hairdresser.
The Hairdresser.
It's about an international killer.
Thank you. Just know that. Just know that. That's the way it rolls. Let's see what else we got here. Any 4Ks that jump out at you?
Let's talk about Steel Magnolias, because big old inner girl that I am. I love this movie, and just always did. In 1989, it's just a beautiful, beautiful Herbert Ross film. With Shirley MacLaine and Olympia Dukakis and Sally Field, all just at the top of their game. And of course, giving us Julia Roberts, that young Julia Roberts, not long off. This is after. I think they might have made this before, but it came out after Pretty Woman.
Yeah, I think it did.
It was one of those kind of things. There might be Mystic Pizza is in there someplace, but and she was just this. Look, I don't want to give away the plot of the film because it's this beautiful Southern Gothic drama comedy sort of thing, and this is the kind of film, by the way, that got made a whole lot back then. Billy Bob Thornton was making a whole lot of these films back then. Whales of August, all these, the ones.
The Whales of August, yeah.
All that stuff that they were doing back then. You didn't right through Fried Green Tomatoes. There was a whole mess of them, and this was amongst those. Yeah. And I loved all of those films. And it was just this beautiful movie. And I don't again, pretty damn sure if you make this movie today, you're not going to get yourself this big, gigantic, theatrically released, thing that this movie was. This was a huge, huge hit film, and it made Julia Roberts a super duper, actually no kidding around movie star.
This is an astounding cast, and they don't do this enough anymore. Sally Field, Dolly Parton, Shirley MacLaine, Daryl Hannah, Olympia Dukakis, Julia Roberts. An all-female cast starring women from all different generations and of all different ages who hit all of these different audience demos. Amazing. And it's often pointed out, why did Titanic become the most successful film of all time? Because boys and men raced out to see a love story, a doomed love story set on the Titanic, which sank 100 years earlier? No. It's because women went to it and they forced the men to come with them, and they got multiple tickets out of that. So there is something about saying, if you want to make a lot of money with a movie, appeal to women.
Yeah, and you can go through a dozen of them. Bridges of Madison County.
Oh, on and on.
I get it. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Great director's commentary from Herbert Ross, recorded obviously before he died. Deleted scenes. There's a TV pilot from 1990, which is weird. I'd forgotten about that.
I did not know that. Yeah.
And then a featurette. Here's the other thing about this movie, though. Everyone involved in this movie. Not just the cast. If you look at all the others, and God bless these men who said, it's okay, we're going to be second fiddle. Dylan McDermott, Tom Skerritt, Sam Shepard, they're okay with it. Yeah. They're okay, secure in their masculinity. This is a ladies' film. Robert Harling, who wrote the play, did the screenplay. Wonderful adaptation of his own play, because he opens it up. It's not a play just adapted to a movie. He finds a new gear. He makes it bigger and more expressive. It's more a part of the South. The Southern backdrop is much more realized. But then let's look at the men who were involved, the other men who were involved in shooting this. Now, Georges Delerue, the wonderful French composer who won his Oscar for A Little Romance. Perfect, right? Jules and Jim. He knows this territory. Produced by Ray Stark, whose aunt was Fanny Brice. Ray Stark made Funny Girl happen. He brings the Funny Girl element to this. And directed by Herbert Ross. Herbert Ross and Ray Stark worked together on the sequel to Funny Girl. Herbert Ross was choreographer on Funny Girl, became director of Funny Lady, and would go on to do things like The Turning Point, Footloose. So, these are all people who are very comfortable with this territory. It's just, this was one of the last significant films produced by Ray Stark. It's a gem. I agree with you. 35th anniversary. Can't believe it's been that long. Steel Magnolias, wonderful. I know.
John A. Alonso. Is John still around?
Boy, he is. He may have passed, but let's see.
2001.
He passed in he passed in 2001. It's been a long time. Yeah, he passed prematurely.
I don't know why. I had him still around in my head.
He would have been 90 this year. Well, it's because DPs tend to live forever, right? I mean, they're like five British DPs who all live to be over 100 years old. It's crazy. It's crazy. So let's see here. Speaking of DPs, you know, I held an Academy Award winning the Oscar for I'll say it right out. John Alcott, when he won the Oscar for Best Cinematography for Barry Lyndon, I held that Academy Award a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's right, because you had that whole thing. I don't know if you have how much.
I'll share that story at a future point when I'm a little more at liberty to explain what was going on. But I held John Alcott's Academy Award for Barry Lyndon, and it was those things are heavy, man.
the old ones anyway.
Yeah, the old ones. Yeah, some heft to those things. Let's talk for a second about 1969's Once Upon a Time in the West from Paramount Presents in 4K. Unbelievable movie. This is. Many people would say Sergio Leone's great achievement. This is greater than even Once Upon a Time in America, greater than the fistful of dollars and a few dollars more and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm inclined to agree. The opening to this film is just it's a masterpiece of cinematic tension. Woody Strode, Henry Fonda, so menacing and dark. Claudia Cardinale, Jason Robards, Charles Bronson. But I think of Woody Strode with that hat and the water dripping on the hat in the beginning and the sunlight just glistening off his nose. And it's just, that is such an iconic image for me. It's just, it's beautiful stuff. Waiting for that train. Oh my gosh. An amazing movie. This is an overlap of Sergio Leone and Dario Argento. Dario is one of the writers on this. Which I think is one of the reasons why it's ever so slightly narratively darker. Probably true.
You know, because I think that's Dario. And look, dude, Claudia Cardinale. Sometimes we forget about her.
I know,
but yeah, she was one of the ones for sure. Yeah,
we were talking about that the other day. We were at dinner and someone said, "It's my brother-in-law. It's my brother-in-law." So we were at Mother's Day dinner, and he looks at me and he goes, "The beautiful Italian actress," and I go, "Gina Lollobrigida." No, the other one. I go, "Verna Lisi." He goes, "No, the other one." I go, "Claudia Cardinale." No, Sophia Loren. Yes, Sophia Loren. And in that moment, after having gone down the list, I should have started with Sophia. You go down that list and you just go, damn, Italy was just turning them out at a certain point, weren't they?
Banging.
Holy cow.
Claudia Cardinale, she was one.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget about her, but yeah.
Well, lots of extras here. And let me just say, too, here's something important. When this came out on DVD, it was ripping. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful DVD. Then it came out on Blu-ray, and whoever did the Blu-ray transfer, as Mark used to say, whatever monkey was running the switches at the machine when they just ruined it. The contrast was all off. The timing was all off. The day for night stuff was all off. Everything was off. It just didn't look like the movie that it was. All of that has been corrected here. On 4K, this once again looks the way it needs to look. If you double dipped on DVD and Blu-ray and you kept them both around just from the off chance that, you need to have a reference version, you can discard both now. You can go and sell them or make coasters out of them. This is your definitive. And because it is a Paramount Presents deal, it comes with, a Voodoo code or an Apple code, whichever you want. So, yeah, tons of extras on here, heaps of extras. Commentary with kind of a multi-person commentary commenting on the film because we don't have Leone around. So Alex Cox, who does nothing but commentaries now, teams up with John Carpenter and John Milius and some film historians, and they all give their take on it. There's a great look back with our friend Leonard Maltin, who just is always just such a joy to listen to. And a new commentary with the hosts of the Spaghetti Western podcast, who know things about this movie that nobody in their right mind has any business knowing. It really is kind of crazy.
That's funny.
Got a couple from Warner Brothers that just came out of the blue here. We got no announcement on these. We got no calendaring on these. They just showed up one day. And so people may not be aware of it. One is 12 Strong with Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's
soldiers in Afghanistan. Yeah,
it's a 9/11 guys on a mission movie. It's fine. It's Chris Hemsworth, and you know, it's decent. Ted Talley co-wrote it. You know, Ted wrote Silence of the Lambs, so it's solid. I don't know if it goes anywhere that other movies haven't gone. And then Magic Mike is on 4K as well.
Yeah, wrapping that up. They have wrapped it up, but this is the first one, right?
This is the first one with Matthew McConaughey basically upstaging everybody.
Yeah.
You know, McConaughey kind of steals this movie because he's given. I mean, yes. Channing Tatum does he's the lead and he dances up a storm, and you know, you have the relationship between all these guys, and it kind of gets into the grit of this. This is not an exploitive movie as a lot of people thought it may have been. The second sort of is, but this one is not. This is very much about the grit of what goes on in that world. But Matthew McConaughey as the club owner, my gosh, he's just so good. He's tough and he's just a little bit dark and he brings an extra dimension. So anyway, that's out there too. Magic Mike. Let me pop a couple of these other ones out of here real quickly. One from the Heart, Reprise, a new edit, a director's cut, because this is it's not. I don't know how new. I guess it is this year because Coppola's been redoing all of his old movies, right? He did Cotton Club and he did a new cut of Apocalypse, and he's kind of going down the line. Anyway, he's basically fixed One from the Heart. I don't know if all the problems are gone, but it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. I still defend it. I think it's a great experiment. I don't think there would be a La La Land but for One from the Heart. And this got two discs. The first one has the new cut and all of its special features on 4K. The second one has the original theatrical release on Blu-ray, not 4K, but also with a whole bunch of extras and tons of stuff going on here. There's a Coppola commentary on the first one, and loads and loads and loads of featurettes on the second one. Some newish featurettes on the 4K as well. So it's pretty great. And Coppola has Megalopolis coming out soon.
That's a whole thing. We should talk about that at some point.
Yeah, and that's rumored to be closer to this than any previous Coppola film.
Even what was that one he did? It was set in Argentina with the tech something.
Oh, Tetro.
Yeah, because I saw
Tetro. Yeah,
I saw the made of Tetro.
I don't know, but I've heard the surrealism element of it kind of veers more toward One from the Heart / Rumblefish. Right, so there's a bit of that, and then also on 4K now is from the DC animated universe, Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. Part 3 comes out in June, so if you're keeping up on it, just hang with it. It's a really, really good telling of Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's different from the one that we got from the Arrowverse. Not overly, but it's a little bit different. You know, it's got Green Lantern and stuff in it, and that's pretty cool. And it's very, very nicely done. And, you know, the plot is significantly still borrowed from the comic books. And then a couple of Steelbook 4Ks here that I should mention. One is, I'll do the Oscar winner first, The Departed, which I've always been a little bit rough on because it's based on a Hong Kong trilogy, which I think is better, which is Infernal Affairs. I think Infernal Affairs is an amazing trilogy. I think it's one of the great film achievements of the last 50 years. They didn't want to do 3 films here, so they kind of changed the timeline and changed a few things and made it so they could make one film. And Scorsese made a second-rate adaptation of a first-rate Hong Kong film and somehow went on to win Best Picture for it. People love this film. I'm unfortunately biased. I think Matt Damon is great in it. I think DiCaprio is okay. I think Jack Nicholson is great. I think Mark Wahlberg is fine. So, I don't know. Not Tim corroborates. We were in agreement on this way back in 2006 when it came out. And the other 4K Steelbook is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Killer Clowns, both with a K. This is from Shout Factory, Scream Factory, rated PG-13, just in case you're worried about the title, Killer Clowns. My daughter is terrified of this because she's terrified of clowns. She doesn't even want to look at the cover of this thing. She saw it come in. She saw me take it out of the box, and she kind of had a little fit. And I said, no, it's a stupid movie. It's very silly. She goes, clowns scare me. I said, yeah, well, these clowns are particularly scary because they're killer clowns and they're from outer space. Tim, is this movie not absolutely, totally definitive of a certain kind of filmmaking in the 1980s?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And particularly these brothers, because the brothers show up in the movie. They're these goofy guys running around this movie. And this is one of the first films that I reviewed for our old newspaper. Entertainment Today, where it was playing at the Crisp over there and Killer Clowns, and it was the early VHS hit. This film was one of the films that that really kept drugged the VHS into being one of the things that regular folks had to have. This kind of it's
emphasis on drugged because you have to be on drugs to really appreciate this. Look, here's the premise of this: these flying saucers land. And the aliens inside of them look like circus clowns with fangs, and
but that's just the way they look. It's not a costume.
It's not a costume.
As it happens, the aliens from this planet look like that.
It's just, it's so bizarre. It's such a strange concept, but it's what happened in the 1980s. People made weird movies like this. So there it is. There's a bunch of extras on the making of it, and on the Chiodo or Kyoto brothers, however you pronounce it. But they didn't really go on to do much else, and I hope they, I hope they got their retirement out of this. We've also got The Crow with Brandon Lee on 4K. It's interesting because they've resurrected The Crow again, and there are a lot of people who kind of feel like they should leave it alone, that it should be Brandon Lee's part forever. I get that, but the tragedy doesn't mean that we should freeze this character, this franchise, this property, which predates him. I mean, certainly honor him and remember him, but I think if people want to take different stabs at this, they certainly should be allowed to. I was not a huge fan of this, but I do understand why it has a following. Anyway, it is on 4K. It has a handful of decent extras, audio commentary with Jeff Most, the producer, and John Shirley, the screenwriter, is very interesting. I think the commentary with Alex Proyas, the director, is a little bit, it's good, but it's disturbing because he obviously does.
Of course, that old,
extended scenes.
Until that thing with, the more recent thing with Alex Baldwin and Rust and all that kind of stuff. That moment in this movie, in 94, that was the big moment, man. And things were changed and whatnot. Nevertheless, the film, I kind of always appreciated the film. But it was one of those, there have been a few of those moments in Hollywood history, to be honest, where things just really went wrong on the set. And then we had to figure out with John Landis and Twilight Zone, that whole situation. Back in 84. Wow. Anyway, I always kind of dug this movie though.
And then we got Mean Girls, both versions, both films. The original Mean Girls on 4K, 20th anniversary. I still think this is a really fun film. Tina Fey wrote it. And it's got a great cast. The wonderful commentary with Mark Waters and Tina Fey and Lorne Michaels, just talking about the making of the film. Really, really fun. Lindsay Lohan, maybe her best performance. Rachel McAdams is very, very sweet here. Tim Meadows always makes me laugh. Amy Poehler is just hysterical here as well, as is Tina Fey. I did not expect that they would necessarily make this into a Broadway musical, which they did. And that is how we get the other 4K of this week. This is a musical version of Mean Girls, straight from Broadway. A little bit different. They've changed the story a tiny bit. The characters are different, but Tina Fey's in it. And I'm sure she's made a mint off of this thing. It did not do well in theaters, I think because they didn't quite know how to promote it. I think they've been trying to minimize the musicalized aspect of a lot of these musicals. They fumbled it with Color Purple. They fumbled it with this, and they didn't quite fumble it with Wonka, but Wonka somehow, transcended it. So in any case, if it's a musical, brag about it being a musical, people.
Yeah,
come on, studios.
Put the music in the trailer. The big moments. The big moments. This
trailer goes for about a minute and a half without even letting you know it's a musical. It's the same thing with Color Purple. Why would you?
They got it with those Sing movies. Not them. I know those are animation, but the other ones. With high school music. There are lots of them where they get.
Yeah. No. You gotta own it. You gotta own it. Anyway, Mean Girls musical, also I think underrated and quite a bit of fun and worth checking out. So there it is. There's a great gag reel on here, by the way. It's really, really fun gag reel. So there it is. Let's see. And then we have two more 4Ks here. The first one is the Ocean's Trilogy, which is all together on one nice slim set. I'm glad they didn't try to release all three separately. It's all three films. Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, which get progressively sillier and sillier and sillier until you have Julia Roberts playing a woman who has to impersonate Julia Roberts. Then it's just the wheels come off. They know, they're like, everybody kind of says, you know what, nobody's taking this crap seriously anymore, so just go for broke. But I really enjoy all three of these films. I love the interplay between George Clooney and Brad Pitt. I love the music by David Holmes, which is just so funky and jazzy and cool and hip. Yeah. And who would have thought that a bad Frank Sinatra Brat Pack movie could be turned into three great Steven Soderbergh movies?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I wish they had not, look, Ocean's 8.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, that they didn't go there. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. That's unfortunate. But a lot of great extras here. Commentaries. Steven Soderbergh does all three commentaries. It's a good week for him between this and Magic Mike.
Yeah.
All on 4K. Jerry Weintraub shows up on here's deleted scenes. Matt Damon is so much fun because he doesn't even try to steal this movie. I mean, if you're Matt Damon, or any of the rest of those guys for that matter, Bernie Mac or, Elliot Gould, I mean, Carl Reiner. I mean, all these guys. Casey Affleck. Casey Affleck has won an Oscar. He's won Best Actor, for crying out loud. And they are all totally okay with just saying, you know what? Let George and Brad hog the limelight, and Julia will and Pacino at a certain point. Let Andy Garcia, let them kind of I'll just deliver my lines, and I'm along for the ride and the catering.
Yeah.
It's fun. And let's wrap up the 4K segment with American Sniper, Bradley Cooper and Sienna Miller, the Clint Eastwood movie, which made a gigantic, outrageous sum of money to tell the story of Chris Kyle. Bradley Cooper transformed his body. He got loked. Yeah, he shredded it to build a Chris Kyle body. Does this movie, given, war movies are tough. John Wayne movies were all the rage at one moment until they weren't. And then they kind of became again. I mean, war movies are tough to make evergreen. How does this survive the current moment, do you think?
It's kind of a tough thing. I mean, even in the moment of the movie, there was a bit of controversy. Chris Kyle, of course, the sort of underlying thing he went on to do was to kill himself and some other service members at a firing range. Okay, he had been he got killed by a student. Is what it was. It was a guy that he'd been showing how. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Wade. You got that right. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was tragic.
That's tragic. It's a tragic thing. He had been a noted American sniper.
Yes, in the war.
These movies always depend on what the movie is actually about, on whether or not the filmmakers know what to make the movie about. If you make a movie like this and you in any way, shape, or form glorify the killing in and of itself, then you've missed. You're not making the movie about the right thing.
Yeah.
And so, and some people said that this movie sort of glorified that. I don't think it did. I think this movie showed a person sort of broken by that. even though that's in the movie.
I think you're right, and the scene I always point to is which I think is the best scene in the movie, and I don't know if this even happened, but Sienna Miller is tremendous as Chris Kyle's wife, and there is a scene where he's on the phone with her. Because you can do that, right, in our age. Cell phone to cell phone. You can call somebody on a cell phone from the Middle East. You can call them on a cell phone from the middle of the battlefield. You could Zoom from the middle of the battlefield, and they do. I mean, we see the war in Ukraine and in Israel and everywhere else. We see it not just on the news. We see it in real time on people's phones,
Instagram,
on Instagram, and so that's a chilling thing. And the scene here where he's on the phone with his wife, and she hears the firefight happening right then and there, and is in an absolute panic over not knowing what's happening to her husband as she hears the bullets and the guns. Is an amazing moment. I mean, it's one of the best things that Clint Eastwood has ever done as a filmmaker. And I do not believe in any way whatsoever that you're meant to watch that scene and go, oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
You are not. You are meant to. It's not about how cool Chris Kyle is in that moment. It is about how terrified and helpless his wife is.
Yeah.
It's about the effect on her, not on him. Yeah. And I think that's where the movie shows its hand. I think the people who criticized it and the people who celebrated it probably did so for all the wrong reasons. Both.
Both. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but tremendous film and a lot of great extras on here as well. Yeah. Really, really worth checking out. It of course, does not have a commentary with Eastwood, which is something that he just does. Unfortunately,
how old is Clint?
My goodness, that's a great point. He's got to be 90. Is he 95?
He's younger than Roger Corman. So
let's see how old he is. He's 93.
93.
He's 93. He's much younger than Corman. They weren't even in high school together.
Yeah, because they're both from around. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because Clint might make it.
Boy, I hope so. He's looking feeble-ish, but he's making a movie now. He's directing something again.
He's working.
He's not stopping. Let me rip through just a few other new movies that are not on 4K, but worth probably mentioning. The Stephen King's Thinner collector's edition is out now. This is from Tom Holland, decent horror director. I wouldn't call this movie particularly scary, but it's got its moments. Joe Mantegna is kind of fun and campy in it. We also have the special edition of Funeral Home, which also has a great tagline on it. Some things never rest in peace. Also not that scary, but this is from Shout Studios. This is, it's fun-ish. This is a Canadian kind of horror satire, I would almost call it. But yeah, it's, bed and, takes place in a bed and breakfast that they've nicknamed Dead and Breakfast. It's funny. It's cute. The Tenacious D movie, The Pick of Destiny with Jack Black and Kyle Gass, is just absolutely hilarious. This is from Shout Select. I think this movie is it just doesn't take itself seriously. It's their whole crazy satirical quasi mock rock and roll shtick that they do as Tenacious D, sorry. And I think the movie's funny.
I was watching X-Files the other night, and it was the episode that Jack Black is in. Jack Black is in this episode of the X-Files with Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah.
The X-Files is all those shows are really great. You see this guy. Jack Black was thin.
I know. It's weird, right? He was in Bob.
Had the same crazy eyes.
He was thin in Bob Roberts too. Remember, he was a bit part in Bob Roberts.
Yep.
I think he was. Wasn't he? He was one of the two kids who go up to get an autograph from Bob Roberts, and when Bob Roberts says something like, "And don't do crack. That's a ghetto drug." Oh my gosh. Next one here from Shout is collector's edition of Orphan from Shout Factory Scream Factory. Orphan also pretty darn good, as long as we're getting into kind of spooky Catholic adjacent horror films. I thought this had some moments, right? Peter Sarsgaard, Vera Farmiga. Yeah, it's just creepy enough.
Yep.
Just creepy enough. And then from Shout Select, let me put I'm just going to put these next to the two Shout Select films here. Over the Edge, which a lot of people have completely forgotten about. Over the Edge is a late 70s film.
Yep, 79.
Right,
Jonathan Kaplan, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, it was Jonathan Kaplan, kind of, and I think it was his dad who did the music. Is it Saul Kaplan? Was Saul Kaplan his dad? I think it might have been.
Certain, yeah.
Doing the Coppola thing, right? Anyway,
yeah.
Tim Hunter was a co-writer on this, so a lot of good people went into this. And this is one of the film that this introduced the world to Matt Dillon. This was Matt Dillon's first movie. Kind of amazing. Great soundtrack. A lot of great 70s music. Cars, Van Halen, Ramones, all kinds of really, really just a tremendous bunch of music. But this is really just this is a coming of age film about, teenagers in this town, which is sort of transforming what suburbia is in what's going to be in the 1980s. And it's a really, really interesting look at a bunch of troubled kids who are, not necessarily of the 70s, not necessarily of the 80s. They're kind of caught between generations, and there's too many of them. There are a really high population of them in this town. It's not, it's a very compelling film. So got a little bit caught, but Jonathan Kaplan, great filmmaker. And then we also have Paul Schrader's Affliction from Shout Select, Nick Nolte and James Coburn, his father and son. And man, did this movie disturb me. Gosh. It's the most hateful father-son relationship I've ever seen in my life. But James Coburn, boy, did he actually just slay this. He won Best Supporting Actor in 1997, right. and deservedly. I mean,
he was the arthritis had overtaken his hand.
Yeah,
in that particular way, and I thought it was it showed what a consummate actor he was. Did he really use that physical affectation?
Yeah.
In this film, he put his hands in the frame in a way brilliant stuff, just brilliant stuff.
It's really it's tremendous. And then a few others here real quickly. My Scott Valentine, who was forgotten almost instantly after he became an actor. What was it on? Family Ties, right? Is where he kind of
So playing their boyfriend,
yeah. So they tried to turn Scott Valentine into a star after he was Mallory's boyfriend on Family Ties, and they made My Demon Lover, which is just not a good film.
No,
I think I
reviewed that for Entertainment Today.
Did you really? This was like it's weird because I think they thought, hey, Justine Bateman's brother just kind of stepped in. Well, so this is what they did. They took Michael Keaton, Michael J. Fox, right, from the show, and turned him into Teen Wolf. And then they took Justine Bateman's brother, Jason Bateman, and made him the next Teen Wolf. So I think at some point somebody said, hey, why don't we take her boyfriend from the show and make him kind of a Teen Wolf? We'll make him, no, just stop it. No, don't do that. Anyway, My Demon Lover, it's out there on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
As is The Morning After with Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges, which is pretty good, actually. Kind of from the Fatal Attraction mold, but it's not terrible. And then I want to talk about Last Man Standing for a minute with Bruce Willis. Because Bruce is, we've had a tough time with Bruce and want to pay homage to him. Do I remember correctly? I hate to put you on the spot, but do I remember correctly? Did you do the junket for this?
Absolutely.
For Last Man Standing?
Yeah, dude. For the adaptation of which Kurosawa Yojimbo, right?
Yes, Yojimbo. Yeah.
And it's all a part of that whole very interesting thing that was going on where Kurosawa and the Japanese were the samurai movies, but those movies were being influenced by American movies, John Ford movies, and all these movies, and Eastwood and the Sergio Leone movies. Oh, yeah, Sergio Leone movie, and then the next thing American filmmakers around this time are looking at those movies and adapting them to these American movies, and knowing full well that they were really just making these movies, the Magnificent Seven, that were already American movies. It's just this wonderful whirlwind. This movie which I really loved at the time, because it was using that almost video game perspective of the first person shooter, which was fairly new at that moment when Bruce rolls into this town. And then basically that same story sort of plays out as he goes back and forth between these sort of rival gangs, one at a time and the other at a time. And I thought it was a lot of fun. Walter Hill, I don't think has gotten credit for being he's a wonderful writer, obviously, but Walter Hill made some really, really good movies as a director too, and
he did. And this is one of them.
It's definitely one of them.
And so I'm also going to share the fact that a couple of things. Ry Cooder, great score, tremendous score here. And I also want to share that this is shot by my good friend Lloyd Ahern, who I just saw on Friday because I went to our local State of the City address.
Oh.
And Lloyd is more or less retired, but he still just cannot let a camera out of his hands. So there's Lloyd with his camera taking pictures of everyone and everybody at the State of the City address, which kind of lures a lot of dignitaries in.
Yeah.
And no sooner do I sit down than Lloyd makes me like pose with our former mayor so he can take a picture. I'm like, why are you taking my? He goes, well, you never know when you might need it. It's the weirdest thing in the world. He's like got this library of photographs of everybody that he's keeping on hand just in case. Just in case, like some point down the line, I go, oh, I wish I had a picture of me standing with our former mayor. You know what? Lloyd's got one. I needed one. I'll call him up. Can you pull that off your drive? It's ridiculous. But it's like, you can take he just will not let go of a camera. That's a true cinematographer. Lloyd, in all seriousness, Lloyd shot the hell out of this movie. This movie has some amazing photography. It really does.
Just a great look overall, but that sort of really innovative thing that they were doing right there. And Walter Hill doesn't get enough credit. Well, he made Wild Bill the year before he made that, which was my favorite. There was a run of these Wyatt Earp movies around this time. Tombstone.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I'll tell you, if you talk to Lloyd will tell you all about the stuff that they did with Wild Bill, because in Wild Bill, it has those black and white sequences that were shot on VHS to get like a really weird look. Like they shot them on VHS and then they desaturated them to black and white and got like this really disturbing kind of flashbacky dream image quality out of it. It was really, and when you talk to Lloyd and he explains to you the process, you're like, how did any of you even ever imagine that would work? Like it sounds like let's just do something crazy and maybe it'll work out. And it did.
Yeah, beautiful stuff, man.
Unbelievable. Anyway, shall we rip through? Well, let's hit these two steelbooks real quickly. Now, a couple other steelbooks here. The Gate. They're both from Vestron Video. Steelbooks, a little bit of retro action here, back to the 80s. 86 and 88. These two films. The Gate. How do you feel about The Gate?
Look, it's part of this era of films of where all kinds of stuff was happening in places that don't really exist. The Hellraiser films was a part of it. This one has like there's this suburban and things were happening terrible out in the burbs. All this is all in the burbs. You had these poltergeist films and so being in the burbs was a horrible place to be because a hell gate might open up in your backyard. And of course, these sort of storylines, a few years later, they were informing guys like Josh Whedon and would give us stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And things where teenagers and the kids have to get together. And, young Stephen Dorff in this movie, if I recall correctly. These movies were kind of cool back in the day.
Yeah. Stephen Dorff's dad is like a legendary songwriter.
Oh, he did. We were just talking about the show. He did a lot of sitcom openings. I mean, famous ones. The one for that Alan Thicke show with Kirk Cameron.
It's so funny. My friend Michael J, who wrote Toy Soldiers, right? Oh, yeah. And he wrote Hot Summer Nights or whatever that was from Top Gun. Anyway, he just moved to Nashville to because that's where all the great songwriting is going on these days. Yeah. And honestly, it's like every other post of his on Facebook. It's like, hey, here I am with Steve Dorff doing a new song for some artist, and it's like, oh my gosh, living the life.
Oh, man.
The Lair of the White Worm is the other Vestron title. This is a Ken Russell film. Ken Russell film that's completely bonkers. I know they say, oh yeah, this is based on a novel by Bram Stoker. So it's no. It's like it. No, you say it's adapted from the novel by Bram Stoker, but what it is a Ken Russell movie that bears next to no resemblance whatsoever to what that novel actually is. Yeah, I mean, Catherine Oxenberg almost unrecognizable here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know this.
Yeah. Amanda Donahoe. I used to love Amanda Donahoe, but yeah.
This is weird, this movie. Amanda Donahoe.
Young Hugh Grant.
Amanda Donahoe basically doing the whole demon deal here. Yeah. I mean, gosh.
This doesn't make any sense. This is goofy.
It's such a silly movie. Young Hugh Grant, I guess, is fine. It's just too campy and too kind of weird. I don't want to tell our Ken Russell story again. Bottom line for anyone who hadn't heard the story before. We were supposed to interview him for Stupid for Movies, and Mark and I were going to get to the hotel after the crew had already set up, and then, we got a call from the crew saying he won't come down. He won't come down. And, and we never got the interview. I even got to the hotel. I'm like, what's going on? And they kept calling out, and everyone who would call up, whether it was the concierge or anybody else, they'd call it up. And, Ken Russell would answer the phone and he would just cackle and then hang up on them. It was a madman. And he went later that night, and the publicist was so apologetic. And later that night, he went for a Q&A at the Academy, which was just as much of a train wreck. The poor guy conducting the Q&A at the Academy, he just kept asking Ken questions, and Ken would just cackle and laugh and point at him and laugh and look to the audience and laugh, and he wouldn't answer any questions. He was insane.
That's terrible.
Man had lost his mind.
Just terrible.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. All right. Let's do, actually, the blow through the Criterion and Radiance stuff. There's a lot of amazing Criterions we have here.
Picnic at Hanging Rock, which I would have thought. I mean, is it a restoration or what? I would have thought that were already.
It's not. It has not been out in 4K. This is the 4K Blu-ray combo. And by the way, people, Criterion movies are suddenly available on Vudu. I don't know where that came from. I didn't get an announcement, but they are. So if you want to get yourself some Criterion movies on Vudu, you can go to Vudu in the store, and they got a Criterion section now. It's kind of amazing. No, this is, it makes me so sad that Peter Weir just announced he's not going to make any more movies, because he's still young, for crying out loud. He's not even 80. Ridley Scott is like 7 years older, and he's got like 10 films in in. I mean, come on, Peter.
Peter's tapping out. Ken Loach, he says that his most recent film is his last.
And Woody is saying too. Woody's saying he may be done as well. It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, Woody has a situation where he can only get them made in Europe, but who knows, health situations and whatnot. But yeah, Peter, man.
Well, there was a novel written in 1967 by Joan Lindsay, which, 8 years later, Peter Weir adapted into basically the movie that defined him and got him his Hollywood career. And, it is this very, very disturbing movie, about a group of girls in Australia who go on this, a group of college girls who go on this Valentine's Day outing, and they vanish. And it's not a mystery, really. It's a psychological exploration. It is an unusual, fascinating, powerful film, and it is gorgeous on 4K. I had only ever seen this thing before in projected, really bad 35 millimeter prints that had just sort of lost all their color. This thing is just wonderfully shot, really resurrects the film. There's an amazing on-set documentary among the copious extras here, which has interviews with everybody right at the time. It's like on set, we're making a doc, and it's tremendous. It really, really gives you a feel for what they were doing at the time. So this is just great. You got to get it. 4K, Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Yeah, man. Peter, man, obviously, I can't, because they're just here in front of me. Picnic Hanging from Picnic at Hanging Rock forward, right? The last wave. And I'm just skipping through Gallipoli, Year of Living Dangerously, Witness, Mosquito Coast, Dead Poet Society, Green Card. Green Card is the first time I interviewed him, because it was, here. And I think that was
so good.
Gerard Depardieu's first English language film. I think it might have been. And then Fearless, which of course we were talking about not too terribly long ago, that Peter Riffick that came up.
So
Truman
good.
Show, Master and Commander.
And incidentally, all these next four that we're talking about, they're all 4K Blu-ray combo editions. One of them I've been waiting for forever. I Am Cuba by Mikhail Kalatazov. Sure, I'm destroying it. 1964. I Am Cuba is a tremendous movie, and it's only been available before in this very special edition DVD that came in a cigar box, which I have had stored in like the most delicate of storage conditions for the longest time, because it's just so cool, that cigar box. But I can get rid of it now. I Am Cuba, Soy Cuba is this really amazing movie from 1964 that is it's a political and an artistic artifact of a moment that kind of it fills in a lot of blanks that we still don't have properly filled in from that period. And Cuba was, I mean, everything related to Batista and Castro and the revolution and what happened there, and the Bay of Pigs, and everything about Cuba is such a fraught relationship with the United States and Cuban Missile Crisis and Kennedy, and all of these things have kind of colored what Cuba is and what its relationship was to the Soviet Union at this point in time. Anyway, this movie really kind of gets inside all of that, and
a good chunk, because it's like these vignettes, and it's
four vignettes, four different vignettes. Yeah,
it's pre-revolutionary, so you get the sense of what Cuba was like just before. And because people forget, even post-revolutionary, early post-revolutionary Cuba, the relationship between Cuba and the United States was still fairly cordial for a moment.
You see that in the Godfather, right? Yeah. I mean, Michael Corleone, the Godfather films, Michael Corleone is going to Cuba because they've got casino interests there, and there was a lot of American money that was
before Castro came to the U.S. And who did he speak before? Was it the UN? Did he go to the UN? Castro and
might have been.
I think Castro came. He went to the UN, and that's when he said all that really commie crap. Things started to go downhill from there. But for a moment there, because it's not like we really gave a damn about Batista. Anyway, that history is reflected in this film. Is my point.
It's all reflected. It has a beautiful score by Carlos Fariñas. It's just beautifully made, beautifully put together. And there's a great interview with Martin Scorsese here from about 20 years ago. Yeah. And a 2004 documentary on the making of the film with everybody involved. It's a great 4K. It's a great 4K. It's a historic film and super important. The Roaring Twenties. Super great Raoul Walsh film made in 1939, that legendary year when just everything seemed to be amazing. This is just a great Raoul Walsh gangster movie from the 1930s, and a Warner Brothers gangster film from the time, and James Cagney, and it's just great. I mean, it's absolutely terrific. Everything in this movie just hums. Humphrey Bogart. It's just terrific. Priscilla Lane, who was not really a gangster moll, but Cagney is the star. It's funny to see Bogart kind of second fiddle to Cagney, really. But Frank McHugh, a lot of people who were just really regulars for Warner Brothers at the time. They were all stock players, and it's great. Raoul Walsh, fantastic. And the nice thing here is that the story was co-written by Robert Rossen, who would go on to be his own kind of tough guy filmmaker. So. Yeah. A lot of great stuff there. Some good extras as well, but Roaring Twenties in 4K. Come on, give it up. It's a Warner Brothers gangster film. Matthew Kasavitz's Hate, La Haine in 4K is pretty great. I remember being blown away by this film. Yeah. I don't think Kasavitz has even come close to doing this since, but really just a tremendous movie that maybe the first film that got inside the ethnic friction in France between all of the different all these different groups that were suddenly creating a very volatile mixture in the outskirts of Paris. Yeah. Where you have North Africans and you have Central Africans and you have Asians and Middle Easterners, and it's like this immigrant stew that is really going to explode at some point. And my goodness, there's amazing cinematography here. One of the great films of the 90s. Really great. Yeah. And then the Werkmeister Harmonies, Tim.
Yes.
Bela Tarr's Werkmeister Harmonies, all 145 minutes of it from 2000. Bela Tarr, of course, the great Hungarian director who is really an acquired taste, co-directed by Agnes Hranitsky. She gets co-directing credit here. I'm not sure that was always the case. I'm going to tell the Lafka story. I don't know if I've told this before, but our dear friend and colleague Bob Kohler in Lafka. Bob is known for being like, Bob sees so many movies at so many festivals that every year
movies at odd festivals, but yes,
Bob sees the movies that nobody else sees. Bob used to be Variety's go-to person. If somebody said, "Hey, there's this like 5.5 hour movie shot in a dead Indonesian island language, and half the movie is black screen. You only hear sounds." The editor would say, "Let's send Bob."
Yeah,
and Bob would love it. He'd find something great to say about it. So this is in, I think, 2001, 2002, whenever it was, whenever Mulholland Drive was.
Yeah.
So we're having our voting meeting at Mike Reschaffen's house, and we're all sitting there and going through the room, and everybody is giving their point. I mean, it's ultimately Best Picture is a runoff between In the Bedroom and Mulholland Drive. Everything that afternoon was Mulholland Drive versus In the Bedroom. And In the Bedroom winds up winning by a nose, right? By a nose. But it was Mulholland Drive and In the Bedroom. It was 3 points to Mulholland Drive, 2 points for something, 1 point for something, 3 points for In the Bedroom, 2 points for Mulholland Drive, 1 point for some other damn thing. And this is one person after another. I think I was like 3 points for Mulholland Drive, 2 points for In the Bedroom, on and on and on. There it goes around the room. Gets around to Bob. 3 points for Bela Tarr's Werkmeister Harmonies, and the room just absolutely erupts into laughter. People just start busting up. It's like, there goes Bob again, and I was seeing a decent amount of movies at the time, but I didn't. I'm like, well, who's what movie? What are you talking about? And Bob kind of looks around at the room, and he points out, he waves his finger like he's scanning the room, and he says to everybody very seriously, "Don't laugh if you haven't seen it."
Yeah.
And because he knew, and you know what? It's a pretty amazing movie.
Oh, it's a beautiful.
To be honest, it's a beautiful movie. But I had no idea what it was. I didn't know at the time.
No.
But it is slow. Make no mistake, it is very slow. But it takes place in this mystical kind of village, and it's it's sort of a fairy tale about a society, a civilization in complete and total collapse, and it's all framed around this Fellini-esque circus, and it really is. It's a haunting film. It's a deeply, deeply haunting film. It just kind of sticks in your head.
And you're right about Agnes, and because she was not always. She worked with Bella a lot in Turin Horse, and she did not. So that was a bit of a thing. They were married. And it was.
See, I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah, and so if Bella was making a movie, she was there, and she was. And lots of folks said that she probably should have gotten.
Interesting.
Credit for him on a lot of things. So yeah, one of those kind of situations.
And then our last two Criterions, Blu-ray only, not 4K, but they're both pretty terrific. One is Dogfight, the Nancy Savoca film that paired a young River Phoenix with a young Lily Taylor, and it's poetic and beautiful, and it's wonderful. It's one of the few films. Most films tend to be, about an ugly person, tend to be about a beautiful girl who takes pity on an ugly guy. This is about this nasty game where these guys try to get whoever loses has to date the ugly girl, right? Mm-hmm. It winds up being the sweetest romance. It's just the sweetest thing in the world. I mean, Lily Taylor, so courageous to play that part.
Oh, it just really super duper courageous early in her career, and just such a poignant and beautiful movie. So it's a 1991 movie, but I think it's set like if I recall correctly, maybe in the 50s or 60s or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
It's just really, really young River Phoenix, who will not be with us that much longer.
Very sad.
Yeah.
And then the last one here is the brilliant Yasujiro Ozu did something amazing that I don't think any other filmmaker did other than Alfred Hitchcock. But Ozu did it right before Hitchcock, which is that he took, well, I guess you could say that Cecil B. DeMille did it with the Ten Commandments. But Ozu certainly was right in there in saying, I'm going to remake my own movie. In 1934, he made a movie called A Story of Floating Weeds. And in 1959, he made Floating Weeds, a remake of it in color. So he took his 34 black and white movie, which was already magnificent, and he expanded the story, moved it to the seaside, shot it in color in 1959. And you know what? Both movies are amazing. They're just absolutely fantastic. And but you learn a lot about Ozu's evolution as a filmmaker here, because there's 25 years between these films, right? I mean, it's just, there's 25 years of evolution as a filmmaker and as an artist, and as his the way he perceives the world. And you know what? They're both just absolutely beautiful and poetic. And this is a wonderful thing to have on your shelf to learn from. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great.
Side
terrific.
by side, beautiful. Yeah.
Ozu and his observational skills of Japanese society, just wonderful stuff. Let's go through a few of these Radiance titles real fast. I'm not overly fond of some of these, but they're all significant, so we'll go through here real quickly. The Bounty Hunter trilogy from Radiance, all three films by Shigehiro Ozawa and Aichi Kudo. Great Japanese sword fight movies. They're fine. They were all made in the late 60s, early 70s. I don't like them as much as others. The movies are The Fort of Death, 8 Men to Kill, and Killer's Mission. They're fine. If you're a fan of Japanese movies from that era, knock yourself out. You'll go absolutely nuts for it. Another Japanese filmmaker, Noboru Nakamura, made The Shape of Sight, which is kind of an underground romance film from 1964. I don't really know who else to compare it to, but it's, it gets really dark. I mean, the guy, it's not a happy romance. The guy pushes her into prostitution, and he's an underground figure, and it's it's pretty dark, but it is at the same time, in the darkness is a great deal of poetry. From 1966, the Italian film Misunderstood by Luigi Comenici. Also, this is the Blu-ray premiere of this. Not one of my favorite films, but I know a lot of people love this film. And it's an Italian melodrama. It's a little bit schmaltzy. It's a little bit it's a little cloying, but it is nonetheless popular. Better is the Paviani brothers' wonderful Allonsanfan. Allonsanfan, Allonsanfan''. Try saying that 10 times quickly. Yeah, it's from 1974. The Taviani brothers, always lovely, make always wonderful. This is a great performance by Marcello Mastroianni. I don't want to compare it to Red Badge of Courage, although I think you probably could. It's kind of like it's one of those courage movies, right? It's about movies about men who are cowards and have to evolve courage, but it's not a warmongering movie. It's not about a guy who's the only way he finds courage is to become a martyr in war. It is he doesn't want to be a soldier, and he has to at a certain point take advantage of circumstance to become the man he is meant to be. Let's put it that way. But Mastroianni is absolutely terrific in it. Black Tide Killers has been out before. I think it was, I think the American Cinematheque had something to do with the prior release of this. Anyway, it's out again on Blu-ray from Radiance, made in 1966.
Yeah.
And if you've seen Kill Bill, you have probably seen a fair amount of homage to this film. It's got a whole groovy vibe, a whole Japanese 60s go-go Austin Powers vibe to it. The color is just saturated. It's got that late 60s, mid 60s kind of real funky, heavy psychedelic color. And it's it's a crime film. I mean, it's got about female assassins who kidnap this war photographer, and after that, they may as well just be go-go dancing for all I care. There's kind of a treasure hunt thing going on, but it really is. It's all about the filmmaking and the style. It's awfully fun. It's awfully fun.
Primary colors, baby.
Yeah, oh, for sure. The Sunday Woman from 1975, another Luigi Comencini film. Again, not exactly my favorite, but it does have some good performances in it. Jacqueline Bisset, Marcello Mastroianni, and Jean-Louis Trintignant are all absolutely superb. It's one of the first European films that got wide distribution here, in which homosexuality was treated as just very matter of fact. Jean-Louis Trintignant just happens to be Jacqueline Bisset's gay friend, and that's it. It's not made a big deal of, but they do become murder suspects, and that's what makes the film a little bit off center and interesting. I don't think it's great, but I think it's certainly worth watching. Goodbye and Amen, Goodbye and Amen, however someone wants to pronounce it, from 1977, also an Italian film by Damiano Damiani, one of the most unfortunate Italian names of all time. I'm probably going to catch flack for that. Email us at gods@digigods.com if you don't like me making fun of Damiano Damiani's name. It's an espionage thriller, Claudia Cardinale, the only good thing in it, and that's a lot, right? We love Claudia.
Two Claudia movies.
Yeah, but it's it's all about trying to overthrow. It's CIA and spies and trying to overthrow some banana republic in Africa, and I didn't really vibe with it. Yeah, not heavily. Let's see, 5 more here. Let me get through these as fast as I can. Kohei Oguru's The Sting of Death was a huge festival favorite in 1990. I remember it doing very well. I don't remember it ever getting a release in the United States, but it takes place after World War II, and it's basically about a couple, a writer and his wife, and she's going crazy. That's it. It's somebody going mad. It's one of those movies, people losing their minds. I don't know why. There's nothing else really to it. 1973, a bizarre movie called Messiah of Evil by Willard Huck and Gloria Katz, who are old George Lucas standbys, most famous for writing the disastrous Howard the Duck.
Oh, yes.
Be warned, Messiah of Evil is nothing like Howard the Duck, and I almost wish it were. I am not a huge fan of Willard Huck and Gloria Katz. I kind of think that they're I don't know. It's just utterly bizarre. Anyway, this has extras on it which I think are better than the movie, especially the documentary, which looks at the film in its own context in 1973 in terms of what was happening at the time that would produce such a film as this. I think the extras are very, very interesting. I think the movie itself, like there's a commentary on here from some horror archivists, which is pretty great. But otherwise, it's, it's just weird. She's been getting these like scary letters from her dad, so she goes to visit him in his town, and then it just goes all Wicker Man, and it's not Howard the Duck.
Cult, yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those movies where just don't get near that town. I mean, look, if there's a house and nobody wants to go into the house, don't go into the house.
Don't go in the house. Yes.
If there's a town and people are warning you about the town, I don't care if your dad lives there. Tell him to leave. say, Dad, come visit me. It's your turn. Come see me. Don't go to the town. Just don't. Alan Cavalier's Combat dans l'île. Also with Jean-Louis Trintignant, very impressive performance from Trintignant, from 1962, pretty legendary year. Trintignant it's a very interesting political film, especially for Cavalier, but, Trintignant is a kind of he's a sort of a spy. He's kind of like a fascist terrorist of sorts. And, he becomes a wanted man, and he has to flee and kind of go into hiding to avoid from being discovered. And you would think, poor guy, how are you going to survive that? Well, you know how he survives it? Romy Schneider's his wife.
Yeah.
That works out pretty well.
Yeah, hang on.
And then the last two here, The Facts of Murder, which was a very, very successful Italian film in 1959, did very well with awards and on the awards circuit. Again, Claudia Cardinale is wonderful in this film. Cannot get enough of her. Pietro Germi is the director and the star of this, right? And it's it's basically a noir. It's a noir all about robbery and murder and Claudia Cardinale. And I don't really care if they catch the bad guy or not. I don't care if the money's recovered. I don't care if anything's recovered. I don't care if the world disintegrates. Just point that camera at Claudia Cardinale.
And everything will be fine.
I'm good. And a big week for Japanese films. We're going to end on one here in this batch. We need to end the show. My goodness, we're at 2 hours. So it's time to wrap up. Yuzo Kawashima from 1962, a Japanese filmmaker I am not that familiar with, but the film Elegant Beast is really a nice artifact from a very rich Japanese era. And it's kind of a nice contrast to the Ozu films that we're mentioning previously. Because, Ozu is the one everybody always points to as like, oh, this is what Japanese life was like at the time. But this is a much darker look at Japanese life. This is about a family who shows they appear to be one way outwardly to people that know them. And they have there's some nasty stuff going on behind the scenes with this family. So it's based on a stage play. Very, very compelling. Really, really well shot. Very, very disturbing. Cool film. It's called Elegant Beast by Yuzo Kawashima, written by Kaneto Shindo. Really cool film. So definitely check that out. I think it's neat. I think it's a little bit like Parasite in some regards.
Interesting.
So I think that, it made me think. I'm like, I could see this as kind of being an inspiration on some level for Parasite. So there it is. Oh, you know what? Let's end on these. Let's end on the Warner Archive films here, because I want to end on Cabin in the Sky, Little Drummer Girl, and The Rain People. Because Coppola's Megalopolis is going to screen this week at Cannes. So in honor of Coppola, who we already talked about once today with One from the Heart, his really, really underrated movie, The Rain People, is now out on Blu-ray from Warner Archive. And I barely knew about, I kind of knew about this movie, but I didn't, you'd never really had any interest in seeing it because it's a super early Coppola film. And, how good can his earliest movies be? Boy, it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Caan, Shirley Knight, Robert Duvall, in their youngest versions, yeah. Oh my gosh, they're all so good, especially Shirley Knight is just. Oh, she's so young and beautiful in this movie. Yeah, she's just great here. It's really terrific. This movie was made in 1969. 69, and it's you watch it. It is a really wonderful drama. It's very un-Coppola-like. They shot this in 18 states. 18 different states, if you can believe that. It's a great road trip. It's wonderful. Woman just bails on her husband and bolts from Long Island on one morning. And, it becomes a little kind of Easy Rider-ish. And James Caan and Robert Duvall are young and amazing and pre-Godfather. And it's a great movie. Eleanor's in it. She is. Who just passed? I know, Eleanor Coppola. That's another. We didn't do an obit on Eleanor Coppola, but we should make mention of that. Coppola. Coppola. Yeah, she should have been among those obits. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Diane Keaton and The Little Drummer Girl, which I always freaking hated. George Roy Hill directed this. Man, when I saw this movie the first time, 1984, I hated this film. I thought it was boring and lame, and
how I don't get it. It's John le Carré. It's not suspenseful. It's not exciting. I want to see a spy movie. And watching it again, I think young me was an idiot. Really, you change your opinions of things. No, seeing it again, I thought it's pretty powerful, and Klaus Kinski, very, very good in this film.
Given present day international events around the Middle East and Palestinians and all of that kind of stuff, it really sort of, the Israeli Mossad is involved in an undercover thing and the Palestinian bomb. It's a whole thing.
It is timely. It is deeply timely. And then let's go out on MGM's wonderful musical from the Arthur Freed era, 1943's Cabin in the Sky, based on the hit Broadway musical, incredibly well directed by Vincent Minnelli. And, what a cast here. I mean, what an unbelievable cast.
Waters, Lena
my gosh. Tremendous movie that helped break down a lot of racial barriers at the time, because you had movies that were made for black audiences and you had movies made for white audiences. It's 1943. It's still the war. And, you know what? This was a hit on Broadway, and everybody went to see this. This was a huge crossover hit. It made a giant star out of Lena Horne. Louis Armstrong was already a crossover hit, as was Duke Ellington. They're both here. And Eddie Anderson, man, Rochester from the radio. Jack Benny's Rochester is just so
really best, and it's just and Butterfly McQueen. It's just really a wonderful, and there's a great narrative in this movie too. Busby Berkeley, uncredited, of course. Buzz did. He did. It's interesting. Yes, he directed some of the best moments in this thing, which are tremendous. Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie, and I wish they'd resurrect it on the stage, because it would be great to do this on the stage today. I think somebody on Broadway should do a revival of this. I really do. Anyway, happiness is just a thing called Joe. Taking a chance on love. I mean, some of these songs, you've heard them.
Sweet Georgia Brown.
You just don't know what they're from, but they're all from this.
Lena was Georgia Brown. Anyway, it's fantastic. Yeah.
So get that Warner Archive collection. It's absolutely sensational. And with that, so we are over time. I'm stag this week. My girls are on holiday. Well, not holiday. It's a field trip, school field trip. But they're at Yosemite. My daughter's at Yosemite with the whole 5th grade class, and my wife got sacked into being a chaperone, so she's
so school is not out, or is it a summer?
Not out.
School is not out yet. That's interesting. Are you guys around, or what are you guys doing?
No. We're out in June, second week in June, or like first week. It's like you start the beginning of the second week in June. No, but this is a 5th grade class tradition going back many years, and they go up to Yosemite and they learn about nature, and they take walks and field trips and learn to be self-sufficient, and But what it basically is, it's supposed to be a big baptism by fire, coming of age experience that gets you ready for middle school. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to sort of shock your system a little bit.
It's like, gotta be grown up now.
Gotta be grown up now. That's it. It's sort of smack you around a little bit and get it together. And so these kids now, they're like, I got to do all this stuff by myself and carry my own suitcase and my own stuff and make my own bed. And so they allegedly, they're supposed to come back transformed and ready for 6th grade. I don't know how true that is, but that's the idea.
That's fantastic. I love it.
That's the idea. All right. So with that, everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll be back in a few weeks. Bye.